Welcome to No Prize Podcast. I'm the professor. That's Johnny. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll have Lucas drop in the middle of the pod or something like that. But we'll save a spot for him. We'll save an opinion.
As always, definitely.
So, and this is the late October edition. So we're heading into the final couple of months of the year. We got some shows wrapping up on Disney Plus.
Yep.
And we have some comics to talk about. So let's jump in. Disney Plus, we have the final episode of She-Hulk that came out last week.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think, Johnny? Give me your opinion.
All right. Okay. So this is a bit of a twofer on this one. What I will say straight away is I absolutely loved the 70s TV start to the show. That was absolutely made me smile from ear to ear. I was like, man, you want to be meta? You want to do fun stuff? This is how you do it. And I was absolutely great with that. I was like, you know what? Really works.
Yeah. And then should have just ended right then.
Yeah. I get the idea part of the attraction of She-Hulk is the breaking of the fourth wall. Happens in the comic books, happens in the show. I get that. There's a difference between breaking the fourth wall and then going in and erasing whole swathes of the reason why the episodes exist in the first place. Right?
Yep.
If you think about it, she could have turned around and said, being She-Hulk has been a pain in the ass. You might as well just go back to the start and make sure I don't crash the car. The end. But they don't.
Yeah, very true.
They don't, because she says that. She says using the blood story is cliche and everybody expects it. Oh, we didn't expect Jennifer to have a change of heart and actually like being She-Hulk, did we not? Was that not cliche? I think you'll find it was. So for me, a good attempt at doing what the comic used to do. I think some of the follow through is terrible. It's some of the in jokes about, oh, can we not do this as you because she costs too much money and all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But by the same token, from when I remember reading She-Hulk comics in the past, which admittedly I haven't read a shed load, you very rarely see Jen as Jen anymore.
No, not often at all.
No, so to be fair, I expect to see more She-Hulk in She-Hulk.
Well, see, and here's the thing is that you never saw Jennifer Walters breaking the fourth wall. It was always She-Hulk, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
Did you not do that whole sly wink to the camera a couple of times?
Not that I recall. I think it was always She-Hulk that did it.
Okay.
But given you had already said that Jennifer Walters doesn't really appear in the book anymore, as much as She-Hulk, she's always She-Hulk. But I think that there were a couple of things that worked in that episode, but you're absolutely right about like the whole erasing of the episode or the whole reason that we're all watching, right?
Yeah.
The fourth wall breaking, that's She-Hulk's thing, right? And
yeah.
I like the idea of, and of course the highlight for me was the same thing you said, was the beginning where, especially us old timers that have watched the Incredible Hulk series with Bill Bixby. I thought it was fantastic.
Don't be angry.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was the letterbox format too, and like it was great. But then when she stops the episode midway and busts through Disney Plus homepage and jumps down into the other box there. That to me was, I thought that worked because that was literally the She-Hulk on the pages of her book going through the gutters, right?
Yeah,
going through
yeah.
the panels, and that's the only way that they could do like a panel break, And so I thought that worked very, very well. The only thing that, and I did like the scene too with her and Kevin, and the whole where the X-Men and giving the thumbs up to the camera. I thought that was kind of funny, but the whole idea of them just totally wiping out the last episode and then just having it fix everything and just with a rewrite, that to me didn't work because that's the easy out, right? It's the
It's there has to be a reason why. For me, there's got to be a reason why Daredevil's in it. It can't just be for a booty call. And I don't understand why. Someone will have to help me out with this. Then I don't understand why Wong's going back to rescue Emil.
I didn't know that either. The only callback I had from that was that they had both been in Shang-Chi together in the pit, right, fighting.
Yeah, but that was
why?
alluded. Sorry, that was alluded to earlier in the earlier episodes, wasn't it? Because they said how he's escaped, and that's when he's escaped to go and do the fighting in the pit with Shang-Chi.
They didn't spend a lot of time, fixing that. In fact, I kind of thought that they should have like rapidly reshot the last 30-second scene so that they could have had, what's her name in there, the one that everybody likes.
Yeah. Melanie, is it Melanie?
I can't remember.
No.
Madison with a Y, but not where you think. They should have had something in the end with it. They could have done that. They could have shot something for 30 seconds in the last 3 weeks because that no one expected her character to take off. Because she got all that free publicity online, and then they did nothing with it at the end. So
the other thing I didn't particularly like, I remember a few episodes ago we asked who's the audience for She-Hulk, and I said there's no straight up strict audience for She-Hulk. It's about clickbait.
Yep, social media.
It's getting likes and dislikes and getting commentary one way or the other about it.
And there's a huge social media following for She-Hulk, good and bad.
Yeah. But that actually was the bad guy of the whole thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you're kind of dissing the thing that you're trying to promote. You're kind of insulting the people who are making the comments that are making people watch your show. That's a bit snidey. That's a bit. I didn't like the whole bro code thing. Surely to God, we have got past the point where it's like one gender is great, so therefore the other gender has to be bad. Well, surely we've gotten past that.
It was the whole leaning into that, right? Because they knew the show was going to be meta, like you said, right? Like it was going to be fourth wall breaking. The audience was supposed to be in on some of the jokes, and then they knew when they were writing this that we're going to do social media, and there are going to be so many like fanboys that are going to hate this show with a passion that are going to be blowing it up on Twitter. So let's lean into it and blow them up before, because we know they're going to be blowing us up. And let's just make that kind of a meta joke too.
But then the problem is, people will look at me and think that I'm that bloke.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'm absolutely not. There's bits I like about She-Hulk, there's bits I don't like about it. And I've been quite honest about this. Yeah. I've watched every episode, though.
Right.
And I've watched it with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get why. In today, we talk about diversity, we talk about equality in comics, we talk about diversity in characters. In fact, I've recently seen the Black Adam movie, and there's two repatriations in there. Two characters are different to the comic versions. Do I have a problem with it? No, because they both work really well in the book. In the film, because the characters themselves work well. It doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Right.
And yet then you've got She-Hulk saying that for Jennifer and She-Hulk to be right, the dude and the guys have to be wrong.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of where the message I got as well.
and you're kind of like, you want to be clever. You're trying to be clever, so come up with something clever, please. I mean, if you look at the other male characters, the boss of the law firm, a douchebag, just using Jen for his own reason, his own purposes. Her pal that knocks around with the secretary, the one from Arrow, he is absolutely, I don't know what's the word.
Douche nozzle.
There you go. So, there's not one, even Daredevil doesn't come across as Daredevil.
Well, I mean,
so
he's
the
MCU version of Daredevil, not the Netflix version.
So in all of She-Hulk, there is no strong male characters at all. Either get rid of the Hulk early doors and bring him back for the last 10 seconds with Scar. Why?
Yeah. Why? And Scar looked super emo.
So would I watch season 2 of She-Hulk? Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Would I keep an open mind? Yes, I would. Would I like the message to be more equality based? Yes, I would. There you go.
Well, I liked I think the strong points of She-Hulk was that they cherry picked all the different runs of She-Hulk. Like we had Savage She-Hulk, so you saw a bit of Savage She-Hulk in there. You had Dan Slott's run, which was very much kind of tongue-in-cheek, old school, D-list villains, guest stars. Then you do John Byrne's run, which was the fourth wall breaking stuff. And then, you had Charles Soule's run, who was more of the, legal type courtroom drama stuff. So they took all those elements and threw them all together. And I think the show really worked for what it was. It made it unique, right? So we haven't seen anything like that other than the fourth wall breaking of like Deadpool. But I mean, you watch the show and it's definitely not Deadpool. So for me, I thought the show worked on a lot of different levels. But yeah, I think the show might have been a little bit mean spirited towards the fans that made it actually able for them to make the show. You know what I mean? So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because it's like, in fairness, and I know I'm going back a while, so apologies for this. I can't imagine them being back in the 70s, 80s, especially John Byrne's run. Can't imagine there being a lot of women buying She-Hulk comics.
No, I mean absolutely not. And even of course back in the 80s, none of the books were aimed at women. Because that they were the invisible fan base. So
still has to an extent massively, but there shouldn't be. We've got we've got a wealth of what Marvel do, and I've said this before. Again, Marvel do female characters, strong female characters that do them well. Apart from Werewolf by Night, where Elisa was terrible. But like Captain Marvel, Black Widow, you know. Even in the comic books, the Invisible Woman's had a mini series, and it was really, really good.
Well, and I thought Ms. Marvel was the show on Disney Plus. I thought that was great. If you were,
it's target audience.
It's target, for the target, and She-Hulk is target audience as well. Right? So I think it works for who it's aimed at, and it's sometimes it just misses the mark where. And you've said before, it's not aimed at me.
It's not. It's not. So,
but
okay,
I enjoyed She-Hulk. Let's jump over to Andor, who had a couple of, at least one, really epic episode, right? I would say episode 6, and then we had another slowdown a bit for episode 7. So why don't you're finally caught up, Johnny. I know we've talked about a couple of weeks and that you were struggling to catch up. So has it sped up for you at all?
The action episode, the raid on the planet, brilliant, well done. All of it was perfectly paced. I didn't quite get the motivation of the bad guy, the rebel. It's like, we'll split the money. I'm like, what? What's this? Where's he come from? I don't get that.
Left field.
I like the idea of giving him the journal, because that's the thing that's going to like awaken the rebel spirit in him. How he's going to get it now that he's been arrested, God knows. And this is where I started to lose a little bit of confidence in the show.
Mm.
I love the whole Mon Mothma stuff. I think that's really good. I like that.
Yes.
Keep that. But then he goes back to his planet. At one point, I thought his mum was going to dob him in, but thankfully not. Or the robot, one of the two. And then he says, "Right, I'm going off to do whatever I need to do." And off he goes. And then the whole Mon Mothma stuff happens. And then next time you see him, he's on a beach planet. He's just hanging out with some girl that he's.
It was like Miami Vice.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, considering you've spent 6 episodes dragging your feet, showing us every little step on the way, you've missed a great big chunk there. How do you get a ship? How do you get off the planet? I'd like to see how he got off the planet in the first place. How do you get a ship? How do you get the ship to where he's supposed to be going? How do you meet the girl? These are the key elements, and you've just kind of washed past it, and then moved on to the next bit, which is he gets arrested. Obviously, at some point, you can't spend 6 years in prison because the show's only based 5 years before the film. So he's gonna have to break out of there somewhere. Whether that's the Imperial agent sorting all the data, works out that it's him and goes to kill him, and he escapes from that point of view, God knows. But I don't know. It's I think it's trying to do too much as a show. I don't care about the Imperial agent, the bloke one. The woman one who's in the chief data sort of person, she's interesting. Mon Mothma's interesting. Andor himself, I don't know. I'm really not sure, but I'm still with it because, like you, I'm a Star Wars nut, so I'm gonna stick with it and see how it goes. But I've lost my confidence. I have, unfortunately, as the Mandalorian would say, this is not the way.
Well, so I think I might disagree with you slightly.
Good.
Well, yeah, there is hardly any action in this show at all. It's a huge character piece, right? It's a huge let's develop these characters. Let's develop the reason why the rebellion exists in the first place, and show you all these harsh reasons. The thing that I keep coming back to is when I watched the original Star Wars trilogy, or even the other 2 trilogies, the rebels were always the heroes. They were always the pet. You put them on the pedestals. They're taking out the evil empire.
Yeah.
And from watching this, they've really kind of gray wash everything. There's no black and white. The rebels, in some instances, are just as bad as the Empire. When you watch it, especially there was a scene in episode 7 with Stellan Skarsgård's character, where Mon Mothma was like, all the innocents that are going to survive, there are going to be a lot of innocents that lose their lives, and he says that's the plan. I was like, holy crap. And then even with Cassian, you've seen the choices that he makes. And you alluded to episode 5 when the guy was like, well, we can split the money. And he just takes his blaster out and shoots him. That was a shock to me, because I was like, Han Solo even would never do that. I'm like, this to me is it's a darker world, right? It's a darker world with no easy right and wrong, black and white answers. And to see and to have the rebels reflected as willing to be worse than the Empire to achieve the goals of their freedom, it is very reflective of, I keep coming back to like the Irish Republican Army, right? Like, I kind of think that, while their motivations are what they are, but they're willing to be worse, right? They're willing. Like, I'm willing to be worse than you think, in order to achieve the goals, and that's the message that I'm getting from this show, which is making me like it, right? But uncomfortably like it. Like I like it, but I'm kind of like, this is not Star Wars that I'm used to. There's a couple of jarring things that shout, this isn't Star Wars to me.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those are like, so the security guard Cyril, who had gotten fired, and most of the last couple of episodes have been him sitting with his mom in the kitchen, at that diner booth kitchen table, which is
Mm-hmm.
super jarring because it makes me think they're at a diner. And then him eating Captain Crunch out of a actual
Yeah.
bowl with an actual spoon with blue milk, the only thing that making you think it's Star Wars.
Can I
But then,
have pizza at Go, please? I mean, not
right,
pizza.
but so there are so many things that happen that have happened in this show that kind of take me out of the Star Warsiness of it. And the one moment in this episode was the fact that they were watching the news on an old 80s tube TV, which just made me go, what? Everything that I've ever seen in Star Wars, there's not been any kind of media, for one, but second, anything that you ever saw was like the holograms, right?
Yeah.
3D hologram images. Why is the news look like Peter Jennings reporting from Iraq? You know, I was just like, it took me out of the show so hardcore. It made me just be like, okay, so Cyril's diner loving table mom who feeds him Captain Crunch must live on Earth.
So, do you not think it would be great if they had James Earl Jones say, "This is the voice of cinema"?
This is the Imperial News Network. You know, that would be awesome.
That's
But
meta.
yeah,
Let's do that.
that would be unbelievable.
I
But
get where you're coming from. I absolutely, I didn't really, I didn't see it the first time around because in my head, the Star Wars universe, the thing that I like about it is it's a lived-in universe.
right,
But so I don't pay much attention to that sort of thing. Like when you watch old Star Trek, and they've still got like switches, and the calendar's like one of those that goes round.
yeah,
And
right,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't worry about it so much because I'm like, one of the things I did enjoy, which I liked, seeing the sentry droids
Yes.
because obviously one of those pops up in Rogue One.
Well, I think one of them will be the character
Yeah,
from Rogue One, and I can't
so
remember his name. So
I'm looking forward to seeing that develop a lot.
yeah, and if
Um,
you look, and there's still a couple of characters that we haven't seen yet that are on the poster, like like Saw Gerrera, Forrest Whitaker's character is in this, but he hasn't shown up, and then we're 7 episodes in. So
Sol Guerrero, what a great character! I mean, he's in Rebels.
yep,
You know, he's one of those like extended universe characters that has parlayed his way into all different things and make it kind of absolutely brilliant. Same with Bo-Katan
yep,
for in The Mandalorian. Again, a
yes,
cartoon character from the Clone Wars that has then sort of become such a character. And of course, you can say the same for Ahsoka.
yeah, of
Um,
course,
it's probably, but it's interesting. I think I do. Rogue One and Solo are probably my favorite two Star Wars movies from
right,
the Disney Star Wars universe. Mainly because I love Han Solo and Chewbacca. You know, is the film perfect? God no. Is
yeah.
Rogue One perfect? No, but it's a different take, isn't it? It's a different
Well,
timber. The rebels sacrifice everything to get the data to the princess, and that level of darkness is, as you say, it's prevalent in this show. So.
yeah. Well, and I think, and this is going forward too, and I'm predicting the future here.
Oh, hold on. Are you calm, at peace? Are you feeling one with the force if
Yes,
you're doing this?
I'm gonna see the future. Andor is gonna be that building block for all future Star Wars projects because I think it's building up like a bunch of new characters that are going to maybe spin off into other shows. I'm thinking, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, those are so tightly tuned into what has happened before, where you have Andor is really the only one they have is like Rogue One to kind of build off of. But that Rogue One was such its own animal anyway when we saw it, right? Because it was like, wow, this is so different. I like it. This is building off on that, which is going to, I think it's going to change the tone for the rest of the Star Wars universe going forward. And you're going to see more projects like this that are kind of a different vision than this is not Lucas's vision. If you're watching Andor, this is not what Lucas ever planned.
It's funny. It's because I always say, because when people start giving it grief about the last 3 Star Wars movies, say, "Oh, this is my Star Wars, chunta boo hoo hoo." I always say, well, Star Wars movies are built for kids. What you're doing is you're forgetting that when we first watched Star Wars, we were like 8, 9, we were really into it. 8, 9-year-olds really love the last 3 Star Wars movies. That said, Andor, the TV show, is not for kids. It's not aimed at kids. It's not for kids. Andor is the show for us. This is Star Wars done with an adult an adult perception element to it. And that's where the darkness comes from, where you feel uncomfortable, because we can watch Star Wars and love Star Wars. We can watch heavy adult stuff, themed stuff, and we can like adult heavy themed stuff. Mix the two together, and now we're in this awkward place of like, ooh, if this was just like a regular like show, had nothing to do with Star Wars, you'd be fine. You'd be like, oh yeah, I get it. But because you've got this preconception of what Star Wars is, and this is flying against it, you kind of that's what makes it feel uncomfortable, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Because how many times have we seen gangster shows where they do stuff to, do bad things for good reasons? So,
right.
Cool.
All right.
So there you go.
Let's
stick with it. I am sticking with it though. I am so there.
I'm interested to see how it wraps up. I know we still got 5 episodes left, but I think that by the time we're done with this, we might have a window into something really interesting that will change Star Wars. So
cool.
All right, so let's take a real break real quick, and we will be back to talk some actual comics.
Hooray!
Hey. All right, make sure to check out our sister show, The Definitive Crusade, on opposite weeks from No Prize Podcast, starring our friend Johnny Hughes.
Great. Yeah, that's where you go for all your DC loving.
Oh, yeah. Such as it is.
Hey, wait.
All right.
I thought this migraine comic, Marvel Comics when I'm on DC. I'm joking. I'm joking.
All right, so we're gonna jump into a couple of our reviews here that we have ready to go. I know, Johnny, you wanted to check out the last issue of Captain Marvel that came out last week.
Cool.
Why don't we go from there?
Yeah, 2 seconds then. Right, so Captain Marvel from 2 weeks ago. This is a really fun book. Let me just bring it up and we can I'll share the screens with you and stuff. You can see what we're talking about.
That's usually Lucas doing that. So.
It's all right.
I apologize for not being technologically savvy enough to share screens and stuff.
I've got it. I've got it. There you go. Boom. Right. So this is one of the dreaded Judgment Day crossovers. And of course, when I saw it was that, my heart sank, but I should have had more faith. As always, written by Kelly Thompson. Art this time around is Andrea DeVito. Color artist is Nolan Woodward. letters and production is VC Clayton Cowles. So you know, at least from that point of view, the letters are going to be good. It's time for judgment. Although whilst Carol's getting judged, and while L'Oreal, because she's worth it, that's a joke for the English people. I don't know if that's adverts works over there in the States. Is visited by her mum. The crux of this story, the main theme, is that it's actually Chewie that's getting the judgment. And if anybody's got a cat, you know what sort of sorry state that could cause, right? Right?
Yep.
Still, it's not a cat, it's a flurkin, and as such, gets into all sorts of trouble. Through Chewie's eyes, we get a tour around Carol's cast of characters, as well as some people that live in the building, casting judgments left, right, and centre, and Chewie wins, Carol wins, L'Oreal wins. They're all past judgment. What I liked about this, there's a couple of things that I really like about this book. The art, for a start, is bang on. It really works really well. Kelly Thompson's got the mannerisms of a cat down perfectly. I have a cat. You've seen the cat a number of times on pods when she jumps on me all. But the sort of disinterest she has, and then as you go through the things she gets up to, like she cuddles the kid to make sure the kid's all right.
Yeah.
She then goes and sorts out the people who are fighting. All these things this cat does just because it's a cat. Just the thing, you know, and that's how cats work. They don't. They think totally differently. A bit on a personal note, I do have to say something about this book. In that, where is it? Let me get to the right page. I had it earlier. This panel. So last week, when this book came out, it was the 3rd anniversary of my wife's mum passing away, and emotional time for us both.
Yeah.
And I was reading this book, and I wasn't really paying any attention to the kind of the who was judging who. I was just going along with the flow till I get to this panel, and it was I wish you could have seen her, Carol, and it just got me. It just hit me right there and then. And I showed the book to my wife. I didn't show her the mum thing because my wife's upset about it already, as you'd expect.
Right.
But it was just, you know what? It just hit me. So I absolutely love this book. I love Kelly Thompson on this book. I am a huge Carol Danvers fan from God knows when. But it's moments like this that make this book work. You talk to me. You can't write. People can't write Carol Danvers because she's too powerful. This is why she has a cast of characters, so you can have that emotional impact. So I absolutely adore this book, and I'll batter anybody who says it's pants. So there you go. Be warned.
Well, you know, I enjoyed the last page as well. You know, with when you realize that that the Celestial really is kind of taking the form or the avatar of the person that is being judged. Who would you most either like want to judge you, right? Or
right, that's a shout.
Right. So that to me, and that's gonna fly against like this whole event book that I think is terrible, because all of the books here, everyone's getting judged for something, and some of them are passing, some of them are failing, and at the end of the day, you know, to be passed or failed as a group based on individual, like if you're judging me individually, then you should pass or fail me individually, right? So I don't understand the whole concept behind this. I also don't understand the concept of if the Celestial is judging Earth, why other characters are getting sucked into it, like the X-Men Red that are on Mars. Why are they even in the book? So, you know, I like these little character issues, you know, because we don't get enough of them. And to see something like First of all, the title of the book is just the best title I've seen in a long time. The title of the book is called The Chewy Center. And I thought that was really kind of cute. The artist Andrea DeVito, huge fan of Andrea DeVito from way back, when he was on the thing. And
that's a great panel. Look at that panel.
It's yeah, dynamic superhero stuff. I just love it. I love the continued inclusion of L'Oreal in the book, because I think she's a great character to kind of bounce stuff off of Carol. It just kind of be there. And you said, she's so powerful. So of course she needs powerful friends to kind of play off.
Yeah.
So the book is interesting on its face. Everybody's a fan of Chewie, especially if you've seen the Captain Marvel movie, where the cat's actually in that. So
gets a name change. Ooh.
But whatever.
So, but it's just the same cat, yeah. Cool.
It's the same cat. It's the same octopus cat.
Yeah, flirkins. What I will say about, because we haven't actually talked a lot about the event. We've kind of sidestepped it.
Sure. Yeah, we have time to talk about that if you want.
We have. We obviously I read the Resurrection of Steve Rogers live on the pod, which still baffles my brain. What I will say is of the event books, I've read three. I've read this one. I read the Amazing Spider-Man one. I read the Hawkeye one.
Yeah, Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoyed all three of those. And it can't be a coincidence that as you said, Bud, that they are character comics. They're not the whole shebang action. Oh my god, and all this sort of stuff's happening. And when you think about it, so they should, because the event's pants anyway. Because no matter whether you're judged or not judged, it's all going back to the same as it was. So these character moments, these tie-in books are probably where you're going to get the most enjoyment, because these are the reasons you get to see the characters react to that judgment, react to how they're going to be viewed by the people who they love the most, respect the most. The ones that, as you said, these are the ones. I mean, Chewie's is Carol. Carol's is the original Captain Marvel, or the Marvel she got her powers from, and L'Oreal's her mum. So it resonates. The Peter Parker one, it was Gwen Stacy. For Hawkeye, it was Black Widow, and the mailbox.
Which was weird because it should have been Mockingbird, but I don't know. I'm not.
I agree on that one. Yeah, I think Mockingbird's probably.
Well, and also that Hawkeye issue had Luke Cage, because it was two. It was Black Widow and Luke Cage, which to me, just. So maybe it doesn't make a little bit of sense, because Luke Cage and Hawkeye don't really, that they're not. You don't think of them together as it
was just keeping it current, wasn't it? Because of the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Right. But no, those three I've really enjoyed. Has it made me want to go and read the main issues? God no. Are you kidding me? But
Terrible.
These have been good issues.
It's a huge X-Men crossover anyway. It says Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, but the Avengers have been largely absent, other than the whole Captain America thing where they're resurrecting him in the pages of X-Men, which, what does that even mean? How does that even supposed to work? Is that, I thought that was for mutants, and he's not a mutant. And how did he get backed up? Because that was like Professor Xavier's psychic, keeping backups of all the mutants. And
how do you manage to back up a shield in the resurrection chamber?
Very true. Well, the same thing can be said for Wolverine's claws, right? I don't know.
Great. And X-23's claws, by that man.
Right. There you go. Yeah, it's a mess of the highest order. The biggest, I guess, revelation that's come out of this whole Judgment Day event was really that mutants were kind of a deviation from deviants from the whole Eternals, and then to have the Eternals kind of make the decision to wipe out mutants was kind of, I guess, on the face of it, an interesting idea, but then to have everything kind of like, first of all, the reason the Avengers are invisible in this is because they're reactionary in this, not they're not proactive. They're just kind of reacting to what's going on with the Avengers and the Eternals and the X-Men. So,
but that's the Avengers all over, isn't it? The Avengers react.
We'll definitely talk about the Avengers because that's my pick.
You want to do that now?
Yeah. Let's talk about the Avengers because I can't wait. The biggest news coming out of New York Comic Con 2 weeks ago was that Jason Aaron is leaving the Avengers.
Hooray! At last, who's taking over?
I don't think that they've announced that yet, but they're starting very shortly as the next Avengers event called Avengers Assemble.
Get your CV sent in, bud.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see who's taking over because they can't be any worse than Jason Aaron, in my opinion. And I apologize because I know that I talk about Avengers a lot on this podcast, but that's because I love the Avengers. I love them into my soul.
I'm not dissing you for bringing out Avengers. Just remember that when you're on Old Timers and giving me grief for picking a Bat book. That's what I'm saying.
So, all right. So this is Avengers number 61 by Jason Aaron and Ivan Fiorelli, with color artist David Curiel, letterers VC's Corey Pettit. And if you don't like it, we can blame the editors, Martin Biro, Annalise Bisa, Tom Brevoort. This is the fourth part of this Avengers in Time kind of storyline. And it's kind of funny that you have an Avengers group traveling through time and Kang's not the bad guy. So it's very strange. The team is actually chasing Mephisto, who's been the big bad in this book since issue 1, right? And somehow we haven't been able to get rid of him yet. Is now toying with supposedly Avengers teams throughout time, and we've seen that that there have been, I guess, avatars all through time of certain Avengers like Iron Fist, Black Panther, Ghost Rider, and
Phoenix,
apparently there's Thor's been kind of a constant, right? Because it's the actual Thor. And you're right, Phoenix has been kind of an avatar who apparently, even though she's a universal power, loves Earth for some reason and just kind of sticks around all the time.
Well, same as Doctor Who, then, isn't it?
I guess so. Yeah, and you have Sorcerer Supremes, and you have different like you have Odin. We're talking about like the Avengers 1 million BC. There's everything is coming back to that. The whole idea is these Avengers are trying to get back to 1 million BC to protect the 1 million BC Avengers from Mephisto, who's coming to destroy them. And then, this whole issue is all about the Star Brand. And if I'm not going to get into the history of the Star Brand because it started in the new universe and then for some reason got over here to the 616, and now is just kind of kicking around. This Star Brand, this particular iteration of the Star Brand first appeared, a couple of years ago in the pages of Avengers as a baby, and has rapidly aged every time she uses her powers, to the fact that now she's an adult. And of course, by the end of this book, which is the big reveal, is that she spent this whole issue punching Mephisto in the face, the different iterations of Mephisto through time, and finally gets the Avengers to 1 million BC, but at the price of the fact that now she's an old woman and, probably not long for this reality. So the good thing that I could talk about this issue for is one of the biggest problems I've had with Avengers since Jason Aaron got on it is that it seems like every issue is about everything else other than the Avengers. They're very often, they don't appear in their own book. The sub characters or the everything that's going on outside of the Avengers takes center stage, and the Avengers have all, like we just said in the Judgment Day crossover, very reactionary, right? And then they just show up to solve the problem. Here, you do get all of the Avengers acting together. They're all together finally, and traveling through time together as they had been separated prior. But now you have all of them together with the end result is that they end up in 1 million BC. They introduce a new character in this issue, which is a star brand that was apparently a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the original star brand, which transferred to this dinosaur from the meteor that slammed into the earth and destroyed all the dinosaurs. Apparently landed on this Tyrannosaurus Rex and gave him the star brand, which is weird. But anyway, this, like I said, the star brand is apparently here to be the MacGuffin that stops Mephisto.
The
right?
MacGuffin. You love a good MacGuffin, don't you?
It's you're the one that likes the good MacGuffin, and you're the one that gave me the word. So it's interesting. This story, it seems like it's rapidly coming to an end. It looks like we're finally going to get them to defeat Mephisto, though how you can defeat the embodiment of pure evil as Satan, I don't know how you ever defeat him, actually, right? So
I personally don't think you can, because you can't have one without the other.
Correct.
It's a yin and yang thing, isn't it?
So yeah, so I think if you see, like, the next issue is going to be I guess looks like a solo story with Agamotto, who is the in the 1 million BC Avengers. So we'll see. I mean, this particular book, I think, has been the strongest issue in this storyline so far, because the rest of the Avengers are in it. Even if it's just one panel with Starbrand having an arm wrestling contest with the Submariner, at least they're on page together. At least it shows Starbrand interacting with the rest of the Avengers, which previously we'd only really seen her interacting with Captain Marvel, who was the glorified babysitter in this. But now, you see her interacting with Thor, with Nighthawk, who really is, like, since he joined the group, what has he done other than stand there?
Looking pretty.
Right. So I'm ready for this storyline to wrap up. I'm ready for Jason Aaron to go write something else. I loved his Thor run. I just, I think for the Avengers, he's been all over the place, not consistent. Some of the books have been okay. Some of them have been, what the heck am I reading? It's been, as I even though I think that this is the best issue of this particular storyline, I still think it's all over the place, Johnny. I still think they're going through time, and they're in different parts. They're in different timelines at different pages, and it's really hard to follow.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, like, Starbrand jumps back and forth in time. They go 3 weeks ago, present time, but what does that mean? It's 66 million years ago. I'm like, I'm finding it difficult to find out, like, what scene happens when.
Yeah.
And is it linear? Because I'm thinking that I should be paying attention to whether or not something's happened before something else. And it's difficult for me to keep up, and given I am getting old. But some of these characters, it's like, you get Valkyrie in here, right?
Yep.
But weren't we just reading we were just reading a Thor issue, and she was back as as the Thor and Jane Foster, right? Just a few weeks ago. And then
you're absolutely right. It's all over. It's all over. And do you know what made it even harder? Is I can't remember the last issue with this, because we've had bloody Axe in the way.
Right, yeah, because the last issue of Avengers that we talked about was the Judgment Day crossover, which came right in the middle of this, which took you out of the action.
I'm like,
so to speak.
I picked this book up to look at it for the show, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was like, oh yeah, I remember they're doing something in time, and that was it. But it's kind of, I mean, the art looks okay. It looks energetic enough. There are too many characters for any you want to get any real, other than Starbrand, to get any sort of real panel time.
Right.
I,
And then you have these pages where it's just other derivative characters from like the derivative Ghost Rider, derivative Iron Fist.
yeah,
That's another thing that I wanted to mention, right? So we've talked about derivative characters before and how everything is derivative of itself. And this Avengers run, and then of course in the sister book Avengers Forever, that's just been every single issue introducing another flavor of Thor or another flavor of Ghost Rider or Iron Fist or Doctor Strange or whatever. Now, I get it that these creators don't want to create new characters, right? Because Marvel owns them. We've had this conversation before. That have we? Maybe not you.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that they're totally happy creating all these different derivative, hundreds and hundreds of Ghost Riders and Iron Fists and Captain Americas and Iron Men and Thors, because one of these, there's a chance, might actually hit and be diverse enough to maybe get on Disney Plus or maybe get introduced into the MCU. And then the way these contracts are scheduled, are structured now, is they get a little bit of a payday, right? Or they get a little bit of a thank you, or they get executive producer credit, on something. So that's why, in my opinion, that all these characters, like, there's not enough of them. There's going to be more of them coming out, because you're not going to get a thank you for Iron Man being in an Iron Man movie, but you might get an executive producer deal for Riri Williams, right?
Yep.
So
I never thought you were as jaded as that.
I never used to be.
But yeah, the idea of having Avengers through time, I'm not gonna lie, I quite like the concept of the idea that, like, there's Avengers from this time period, there's Avengers of that time, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Are there other derivatives? Of course they are, but that kind of spoils the original a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm following you 100%.
Because we haven't. So we'll take the guy here with the Iron Fist on the page. We don't know anything about him. We don't know how he got to Kunlun. We don't know how he got his training and all this. Yeah. And you're like, well, I've put all the effort in knowing about Danny Rand and subsequent Iron Fist. I'm up to speed. You haven't explained to me how this guy is the ghost of vengeance, the spirit of vengeance. It's just there. It's like throw it on a wall and hope it sticks. And there are some characters that just don't need to be in Avengers. Ghost Rider shouldn't be in the Avengers. It's simple as. I don't understand it. Is this all over the shop? Yes, it is. Am I glad that it's going to be Aaron's leaving? Yes, I am. The only thing that would make me happier is if Hickman left X-Men.
Well, Hickman's gone from X-Men.
It's still his stuff. It's still his style.
It's still his ideas, right? Yeah, but yeah, you're right. So yeah, you're right about it watering down. Like this is a franchise now. It's not, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, Captain America. We know, maybe with the exception of Thor, who's immortal, right? So now, like, we know that the Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider wasn't the first Ghost Rider, that there must have been 100,000 before him. Same thing with Iron Fist. We know Danny Rand's not the first Iron Fist. There was a million of them before him. Doctor Strange wasn't the first Sorcerer Supreme. There was a million of them before him. So it takes away from the originality. Same thing with Phoenix, and like you said before, there's all these characters that are just like, okay, so now if I go back in time, if we go back to the Old West, which they were in the year, I know that I'm going to find a Black Panther somewhere. I know I'm going to find a Ghost Rider somewhere. I know I'm going to find, so what's...
There should be some universal constants. The Phoenix Force has been around, it's life itself. So I totally get the Phoenix Force should be in different time periods. I don't expect I don't expect there to be a black. Wow, because I suppose like it's passed on, isn't it, from generation to generation? But then that's fine. But characters like Black Widow, for example, I don't expect to see a time derivative of Black Widow because she's of this era. Same with Captain Marvel.
Right.
The Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. There's no way there should be another Earth Captain Marvel in this time period because back then Captain Marvel was Kree.
What?
So that's what should be shown. I don't like the idea of Thor being immortal because he's never once mentioned. Oh, when I was hanging out with the Phoenix Force, and you think to yourself, I get that you can go back and
Yeah.
you can go back and retroactively add stuff, but it's hard to do
Right.
because some smart ass fan like us will turn around and say, "Well, hold on a second. If you knew about such and such, why didn't you show up when Dark Phoenix was on?" Oh, that's right, because you didn't know back then, did you? Because it's just, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
no, it's just, I like, it's not a bad idea what they've done with this book, but it is getting to the point of absolutely saturation levels. The
It's
10 million BC Avengers, as you said, were in the first issue of this book.
it gets to the point that everything is derivative of a derivative of a derivative, and every time you get a new one, it takes away from the originality of what we had already read before, and that it just, to me, it just gets more and more boring. And the Wolverines from 10 years ago, that's like, with the Wolverine, and then you had who's the girl Wolverine? I can't even remember her name.
X-23?
X-23. And then you have
Laura.
Scout now.
Kraken.
Yeah. So to me, it's
Lady Deathstrike, because she's with the claws, although she's a bit of an android more than
everything. It's derivative of a derivative, and it just drives me nuts. And some of, like I said, eventually one of these sticks, and we end up seeing them in the Disney Plus, the MCU, where we get, the new Hawkeye, we get Ms. Marvel, we get, eventually we get Miles Morales on the Edge of Spider-Verse, we get, eventually we're going to get Knuckles O'Shaughnessy from the little midget kid Ghost Rider with the drunken Dragon Fist teaming up.
That'd be class.
Yeah, 6-issue season 1 from Disney Plus, 6 episodes. Silly stuff. So anyway, I want originality, Johnny. Give me an original hero with no back history and build it from scratch. When are we going to see that in Marvel again? Ever? They're not going to give it. They're never going to give it a chance for it to gain an audience, right? That needs to be built on a franchise, an established brand. So.
I don't think you'll see the likes of that again from the big two, primarily because, as you said, the indie market is massive. If I've got a story to tell, I'm going to do it Kickstarter. I'm going to take it to the indie books and go from there.
Wait for Netflix to back up the money truck.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think whilst the problem we've got as aging comic book fans that we have is that we remember when the Fantastic Four was truly fantastic. Remember when Spider-Man was amazing and spectacular. We don't see that so much anymore, and what was once new is now just same old.
Right.
And for as much as I love the Amazing Spider-Man Axe edition, loads of people were complaining about, oh look, Peter moping over Gwen again. Ho hum, have we not seen this enough already in the last 30 years? And you know what? That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of Peter Parker I like. I don't need much more than that, to be fair, because that's his whole thing. But I don't think we'll see super original characters now. I think the age of creativity is probably for the big two is probably done, and everything will be derived from each other.
Well, that's it is kind of funny because it's like, who was the last huge creation from Marvel? It was Deadpool, right? was Deadpool, right?
Cable and Deadpool, yeah.
And that was 1989.
9. Yeah. Cool.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
So 35 years ago.
Bonkers.
Yep. All right.
Thanks for making. Thanks for making.
Impressed.
Yeah. Thanks for making me feel old on my birthday. Appreciate that. Cheers, man.
Oh, hey, happy birthday, Johnny! I didn't know it was your birthday today.
Oh,
If I knew it was your birthday, we would have had a big party at the beginning of the episode.
yeah. That's all right. It's all right.
All right. Well, as Johnny goes to enjoy the rest of his day on his birthday, we will say goodbye for the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be in the shank of autumn next time we meet. In the next episode that we tape, it'll be my birthday.
Hey, and you never know, maybe the Dolphins will win another game.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe the Patriots will. We'll see. All right. Enjoy, and until we see each other again, stay safe.
Adios.